Marcus Chen had been with Dataflow Solutions for 7 years, working his way up from junior analyst to senior systems architect. He knew every server, every network cable, every quirk of the building's aging infrastructure at 1247 Commerce Street. The brick building had character: high ceilings, original hardwood floors, and a history dating back to the 1920s. Marcus often joked that he practically lived there, arriving early and staying late, ensuring the company's digital backbone never faltered. That Tuesday morning in October started like any other. Marcus arrived at 6:30 a.m., coffee in hand, ready to tackle the quarterly system upgrade. He'd been planning this migration for months, coordinating with every department to minimize downtime. 312 employees depended on the systems he maintained, and Marcus took that responsibility seriously. Everything changed when Bradley Hoffman walked through the door at 9 a.m. sharp. Brad, as he insisted everyone call him, was the new VP of Operations, hired externally despite Marcus having applied for a similar role months earlier. Tall, perfectly groomed, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month, Brad carried himself with the arrogance of someone who'd never been told no. "So you're the computer guy," Brad said, not bothering with pleasantries when he found Marcus in the server room. "I've been reviewing your work. Seems like you've been playing it pretty safe around here. Time for some changes." Marcus looked up from his diagnostic screen. "I'm Marcus Chen, Senior Systems Architect, and these systems have maintained 99.7% uptime for the past 18 months. Safety isn't a bad thing when—" "Right, well, that's about to change," Brad interrupted. "I've brought in a consulting firm to modernize everything. Your services won't be needed for the technical aspects anymore. But don't worry, I'm sure we can find something more appropriate for your skill level." The dismissal was clear, but Marcus held his tongue. He'd dealt with difficult managers before. This would blow over once Brad realized how complex the systems actually were. It didn't blow over. Over the next 2 weeks, Brad systematically undermined Marcus at every turn. He excluded him from meetings about his own systems. He assigned Marcus menial tasks like inventory counting and cable organizing. He brought in his consulting friends who knew nothing about Dataflow's unique infrastructure and let them poke around critical systems without supervision. The breaking point came during the monthly all-hands meeting. Marcus had submitted his quarterly report as always, a detailed analysis of system performance, upcoming maintenance needs, and strategic recommendations. He'd been presenting these reports for 3 years, providing valuable insights that had saved the company millions in potential downtime costs. But when CEO Janet Morrison called for the IT update, Brad stood up instead. "Thanks, Janet. I've taken the liberty of completely overhauling our IT strategy," Brad announced to the packed auditorium. The entire company was there. All 312 employees, from interns to senior executives. Marcus felt a cold dread settling in his stomach. "Our previous approach was frankly antiquated," Brad continued, clicking to his first slide. "We've been held back by outdated thinking and resistance to change. Some people in this organization seem to think that just because something hasn't broken yet, it doesn't need fixing." Marcus's photo appeared on the screen, his employee headshot from the company directory. "Marcus Chen here has been coasting on past successes for too long," Brad said, his voice carrying clearly through the sound system. "His report for this quarter shows a complete lack of innovation, 0 forward-thinking initiatives, 0 cost-saving measures. Frankly, it's the kind of work I'd expect from an entry-level technician, not someone with a senior title." The room fell silent. 300 pairs of eyes turned to look at Marcus, sitting in the third row. He felt his face burn with humiliation and rage. "That's why I'm pleased to announce that Synergy Solutions will be taking over all strategic IT operations," Brad continued. "It's time this company moved into the 21st century instead of being held back by people who are afraid of progress." Marcus wanted to stand up, to defend himself, to explain that every safe decision he'd made had prevented disasters Brad couldn't even imagine. But the moment was too public, too choreographed. Brad had set him up perfectly. After the meeting, colleagues avoided eye contact. Some offered sympathetic looks, but no one said anything. Marcus understood. Everyone was afraid of being Brad's next target. That evening, Marcus sat in his car in the Dataflow parking lot, staring up at the building he'd helped keep running for 7 years. His phone buzzed with a text from his sister. "Hey, did you ever figure out what to do with Dad's building downtown? The tenants are asking about lease renewals." Marcus had inherited the property 6 months ago when his father passed. He'd been so busy with work, so focused on his career at Dataflow, that he'd barely thought about it. His sister had been handling the property management, but the lease decisions ultimately fell to him as the new owner. A slow smile spread across Marcus's face as he pulled up the property management app on his phone. There it was, 1247 Commerce Street. Dataflow Solutions. Lease expiration date, December 31st. He'd been so consumed with his day-to-day work that he'd never made the connection. His father had owned the building where he worked. And now, so did he. The next morning, Marcus called in sick for the first time in 2 years. Instead of going to Dataflow, he drove across town to visit his father's longtime attorney, Robert Kim. "Marcus, good to see you," Robert said, gesturing to a chair in his wood-paneled office. "I was wondering when you'd come by to discuss the Commerce Street property." "I need to understand something," Marcus said. "The building that Dataflow leases, they have a standard commercial lease, right? Nothing unusual?" Robert nodded, pulling out a thick file. "Standard 5-year commercial lease, renewable at the landlord's discretion. Your father was a good landlord. Fair rent, responsive to maintenance needs. The current lease expires in about 10 weeks. And if I chose not to renew? Well, you'd need to provide 60 days' notice, which would be cutting it close. But yes, you have every right to decline renewal. Is there a problem with the tenant?" Marcus thought about Brad's smirking face, about being humiliated in front of his entire professional community. You could say that. Over the next week, Marcus did his research. Dataflow had been searching for new office space for months, but the commercial real estate market was tight. Buildings their size were rare, and the few available options were either too expensive or located too far from their clients' downtown corridor. Marcus also discovered something interesting. Synergy Solutions, Brad's consulting firm, had a history of taking over IT operations, cutting costs dramatically, and then leaving companies with broken systems and no internal expertise to fix them. 3 of their previous clients had suffered major data breaches within a year of signing with Synergy. But Brad didn't know about any of that. He was too busy enjoying his newfound power. The humiliation continued. Brad moved Marcus's desk from the IT office to a storage closet in the basement. He had Marcus's access badges restricted so he could only enter certain areas with escort. He assigned him to inventory every cable in the building, a task that would take weeks, and served no real purpose except to keep Marcus out of the way. Marcus endured it all with quiet patience. He documented everything, every slight, every inappropriate comment, every dangerous decision Brad made about the IT infrastructure. He watched as Synergy's consultants made changes that would cause problems down the line. He said nothing. 3 weeks after the all-hands meeting, Marcus requested a private meeting with CEO Janet Morrison. "Marcus, I'm glad you came to see me," Janet said, closing her office door. "I've been meaning to talk to you about recent changes." "Actually, I'm here about something else," Marcus said, placing a folder on her desk. "I need to give you formal notice that Dataflow's lease on this building will not be renewed." Janet's face went pale. "What do you mean? I don't understand." "I'm the building's owner. My father left it to me when he passed. The lease expires December 31st and I won't be offering a renewal. Marcus, if this is about what happened at the meeting, this is a business decision, Marcus said calmly. I've found the current tenant unsuitable for my property. Janet was quiet for a long moment. How long do we have? The lease requires 60 days notice for non-renewal. I'm giving you 73 days. More than generous, I think. That afternoon, news of the lease termination spread through the company like wildfire. By 5 p.m., Brad was pounding on Marcus's storage closet door. You can't do this, Brad shouted. This is sabotage. I'll have you arrested. For not renewing a lease on my own building? Marcus asked mildly. I think you'll find that's perfectly legal. Brad's face was red with rage. You're trying to destroy this company because your feelings got hurt. I'm making a business decision about my property, Marcus replied. Just like you made a business decision about my position here. Isn't that what leadership is about? Making tough calls? Over the next few days, panic set in at Dataflow. The commercial real estate market was even worse than they'd feared. The few buildings large enough to house 312 employees were either impossibly expensive or wouldn't be available for months. Meanwhile, Synergy's changes to the IT infrastructure were starting to cause problems. Minor glitches at first, email delays, network slowdowns. But Marcus could see the bigger issues coming. The consultants had bypassed several crucial backup systems and redundancies, leaving the company vulnerable. Brad tried to blame Marcus for the problems, but Marcus had been relegated to storage closet inventory duty. Hard to sabotage systems you weren't allowed near. A week later, Janet called another all-hands meeting. This time, the mood in the auditorium was grim. I'm sure you've all heard about our lease situation, Janet began. We're exploring all options, but I won't sugarcoat this. Finding new office space for an organization our size in the current market is challenging. Brad stood up from the front row. This is clearly a vindictive action by a disgruntled employee, he announced. I recommend we pursue legal action for extortion and… Sit down, Brad, Janet said sharply. The entire room turned to stare. It was the first time anyone had heard her use that tone with him. She looked directly at Marcus. Mr. Chen, would you be willing to discuss terms for a lease renewal? Marcus stood slowly. 312 pairs of eyes focused on him again, but this time the dynamic was different. This time, he held the power. I might consider it, Marcus said carefully, but I'd need assurance that my building would be managed responsibly. The recent IT changes, for instance, concern me as a property owner. System failures could damage the building's electrical infrastructure, or worse. A murmur went through the crowd. Everyone knew the IT systems had been having problems. I'd also need to ensure that the tenant organization was being run by competent management, Marcus continued. Someone who understands the value of institutional knowledge and treats all employees with respect. The message was clear to everyone in the room. That afternoon, Marcus received a call from Dataflow's board of directors. They wanted to meet. The next morning, Marcus sat in the conference room where he'd once presented his quarterly reports to respectful audiences. Now, 5 board members hung on his every word as he outlined the building's capabilities and his concerns about current operations. The building's infrastructure is solid, but it requires someone who understands its quirks, Marcus explained. The electrical system dates to a 1980s renovation, but it's been maintained perfectly. The network infrastructure I installed can handle the company's growth for the next decade, but recent changes have introduced vulnerabilities that could cause catastrophic failures. Board member Patricia Walsh leaned forward. And you believe these vulnerabilities could be addressed? Absolutely, but it would require reversing several recent changes and returning to proven, stable configurations. It would also require management that values long-term stability over short-term appearances. 2 days later, Brad was gone. No announcement, no farewell meeting. Security escorted him out at 10 a.m. on a Thursday, carrying a small box of personal items. That afternoon, Janet called Marcus to her office again. "The board has asked me to offer you the position of Vice President of Technology Operations," she said. "It comes with a significant salary increase and full authority over all IT decisions." Marcus considered this. "And the lease?" "We're hoping you'll consider a 10-year renewal. We're prepared to negotiate terms that work for both the company and the building owner." "I'll need to bring my own team in," Marcus said. "Some of the damage from the past month will take time to repair." "Whatever you need." 3 months later, Marcus stood in his new corner office on the third floor, the same office Brad had occupied. Through the window, he could see the entire downtown district his father had loved. Dataflow had signed a 10-year lease at market rates. Marcus had used his signing bonus to upgrade the building's infrastructure, adding backup generators and enhanced climate control. The company was more stable and secure than ever. The IT systems hummed along at 99.8% uptime, even better than before. Marcus had hired back 2 colleagues Brad had driven away and promoted 3 junior staff members who'd shown promise. At the quarterly all-hands meeting, Marcus presented his report to the same 312 employees who'd witnessed his humiliation months earlier. But this time, when he finished, the applause was genuine and sustained. "Any questions?" Marcus asked. A hand went up in the back. "What happened to Synergy Solutions?" Marcus smiled slightly. "I believe they're currently helping their clients deal with several data breaches and system failures, but that's not our concern anymore." After the meeting, Marcus walked through the building his father had left him. In the basement, he paused by the storage closet where he'd spent those humiliating weeks counting cables. He'd had it converted into a meditation room for employees who needed a quiet space. His phone buzzed with a text from his sister. "Dad would be proud. You saved his building and your company." Marcus typed back, "He always said good things come to those who wait for the right moment." That evening, as Marcus locked up the building, his building, he reflected on the past few months. Brad had tried to humiliate him, to reduce him to nothing in front of everyone he'd worked with for 7 years. But Brad had made one crucial mistake. He'd assumed Marcus was powerless. The irony wasn't lost on Marcus. For 7 years, he'd walked into work every day, never realizing he was entering his own building. He'd focused so intently on being a good employee that he'd never connected his inheritance to his workplace. Brad's cruelty had forced him to step back and see the bigger picture. And in that broader view, Marcus had discovered he held all the cards. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about revealing that you were never as powerless as they thought. Brad had tried to humiliate Marcus in front of 312 employees. Instead, he'd handed him the keys to the kingdom. As Marcus drove home that night, he passed a small commercial building with a "For Lease" sign. He made a mental note to have his attorney look into it. After all, a growing tech executive needed to diversify his real estate portfolio. The building owner business Marcus was learning had excellent long-term prospects.